No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I am.
As we can hear there, the majority of the people we asked if they like basketball said yes, with most of them being the age of 16 and 18. Basketball is becoming a popular rising sport in Scotland and Britain as a whole. We spoke to Billy Feggins, basketball player, about why he started playing, quitting a men's Division 1 team, and his opinion on the recent decision of stopping the funding for the Olympic basketball team due to the lack of medals won in London.
Something completely different to do with your pals after school and that, and then I just turned into something pretty big. Pals started putting in the hours together and it was just a hobby really. I just quit Division 1 Spartans and now the attitude was absolutely terrible in the team. Like, get a winning team, you're going to need a good attitude, and the attitude just wasn't there, the passion wasn't there at all. If everyone enjoys their sport, that's good enough. Medals, that's nice, but winning isn't really everything all the time.
So listening to Billy there, we can hear that passion is required, and he was willing to leave a team in the First Division League of men's basketball in Scotland due to his team's lack of it. We also spoke to Jay Welsh, another Division 1 player of the West Lothian Wolves. First off, he told us about why he enjoys the sport and the importance of being in a team.
I enjoy playing basketball because it's a quick-paced sport. It's something that's pretty easily accessible for the most part, and I prefer it over playing other sports such as football. Like when I used to play football, standing around in a muddy field on a Saturday for 70 minutes, not being that involved, whereas in basketball, it's a quick pace, everyone that's on the court's involved. I started playing it, I just fell in love with it straight away, loved every aspect of it, and I just kept playing it ever since. I prefer to play with other people, and I believe that playing with a team is a really, really big part of basketball, and everything comes down to playing as a team and the mentality of everyone, whereas playing on your own, it can be a bit difficult to be self-motivated.
Again, we can hear the importance of working well as a team. We then asked Jay if he had ever faced problems with funding for the sport himself.
Never individually have I really faced funding problems, but there is kind of problems with how the sport has been funded, like accessibility and things like that. Like to go along and book a basketball court at like a school or something like that, it costs like £40 for an hour. That's really one of the funding problems that there is. There's not many like basketball courts that are owned by clubs or things like that. The only like problem with funding is there's a lot of outdoor courts, but the weather in Scotland is absolutely terrible compared to it is in New York and Los Angeles. So I think there needs to be more funding put towards indoor courts.
Jay then went on to tell us if he was glad that the sport is rising in popularity in youth in Scotland, and his opinion on the Olympic situation.
I'm really glad I've seen it develop a lot from when I was 15 and started playing. There's been like a lot of development, a lot more youth things happening. There's teams for under 12s and everything. No, I don't think that's for a reason to cut medals. I think that I'm sure it was like 2006 where the GB team was actually introduced, and to only give them 6 years to develop and try and win medals isn't enough. I mean, nothing can happen that quickly. I mean, we done really well last year. We didn't go to the finals or anything like that. We done well, we impressed, we put on a show, and I think the funding needs to keep coming, keep on going into the sport. And there's a lot of players that need the funding, there's a lot of kids that need the funding to be behind them so they can develop and go on and play for Britain and medals. But it's a popular sport, but it needs funding, it needs the backing from UK sport.
So Jay agrees with Billy that a lack of medals should not be the reason a sport loses its funding, especially one that is seeing a rise in popularity. We spoke to the Chief Executive of Basketball Scotland, Kevin Pringle, asking him if he believes basketball is an underfunded sport in Scotland.
I think in Scotland, funding for basketball, we don't do too badly, but there's been some significant cuts at British level, and that's, I guess, got a lot to do with UK sport policy in terms of funding elite sports and where basketball sits as a team sport and as what I would call an emerging sport, coming from a pretty low ranking in terms of world basketball up that ladder through London 2012 games, and now regularly competing with the top teams in the world, but not quite there as a medal contender in terms of Olympics or World Championships. Sport is competitive basketball with 200 countries playing around the world. That gap between competing with the top teams and actually regularly beating the top teams is the gap that needs to be addressed for basketball, and we're not quite there yet. But the position that British basketball is taking means some help to get there, and the cut in funding makes that challenge even more difficult than it already is. No compromise approach to funding, it clearly gets results. I was as enthusiastic as anyone cheering on the 2012 games and all the medals we won, but what it probably doesn't do, that model, is really provide that development opportunity for sports that have the potential to win medals in the longer term but are not quite there yet. That actually works okay in individual sports, because Sport Scotland or Sport England, the institutes of sport in the home countries, will help those athletes get to that level. But in team sports, to breach that top level, you've got to be playing together as a team. So you need some funding at a British level to be able to compete together to make that jump. And that's probably one of the kind of key issues for a sport that's emerging, and also a team sport, that making that, as I said already, that jump from being a competitive nation to being a nation that wins medals is tougher. It's the toughest part of the journey, to be honest with you.
So there we hear that the Chief Executive of Basketball Scotland believes that Scotland is doing fine, but basketball on the British level is not doing as well. We then asked Mr Pringle for his opinion on the Olympic team situation. Here's what he had to say.
Well, that's one of the arguments that's been put out there in terms of the UK sport funding, that basketball is potentially one of the biggest legacy sports from London 2012, and we all know that when we bid for London 2012, a lot of that focus of that bid and then securing the games for this country was around providing legacy for the sport and for the country. But when you look at UK sports funding model, that clearly isn't linked in any way to participation, and probably quite rightly so, because it is about elite performance. But with a sport like basketball, it's the second most played sport and most played Olympic sport in terms of participation, and one of the key arguments that's been made, the top sport in terms of ethnic minority participation of all the Olympic sports, then it kind of feels like we're missing an opportunity with legacy to really inspire a generation, which was again the London kind of catchphrase. And essentially taking away that top level of the sport or removing funding from the elite level obviously does have an impact on grassroots. So there's a frustration there that there's a real opportunity to inspire basketball, a generation of young people from various different backgrounds to really enjoy and participate and compete in sport that's been missed. But at the same time, when I look on a more local basis in terms of Scotland, we're doing pretty well in terms of funding because of that reason, because participation is increasing, our club structure's increasing, our membership of the governing body's increasing. There's more coaches, there's more referees, all the type of sport development stuff we're doing really well, and that's been recognised by funders, so we get a significant sum of money from Sport Scotland. Would we like more? Absolutely. Always funded reasonably well, but it's when you try and link the two things together of participation and inspiring more people to play by providing that world-class aspiration that there's now a big gap in that model.
So Mr Pringle obviously doesn't agree with the cuts to the British team, but feels Scotland alone does pretty well. We then asked Mr Pringle what Basketball Scotland looks after in Scottish basketball.
As the governing body, we're responsible for the whole game pretty much. As I said, I don't like to take credit for everything because we work with a lot of partners. Most people first experience of basketball is in school. So we have school activities, we help clubs link to schools and deliver stuff in schools. A lot of that work's delivered by our club structure, through to providing competition at a regional and national level, our national team programmes and our development programmes to develop players into elite athletes that can compete for GB at world class level. We educate coaches and referees, we support volunteer development. It's basically the whole of the development of sport across the country.
We then went on to ask Mr Pringle if there's a chance of getting the funding back for the Olympic basketball team for Rio 2016 and if an appeal would be successful.
I don't think an appeal to UK sport would be successful, and this time round I don't think there's any new evidence to be presented, so I wouldn't see that. What I can say and what I'd be really hopeful of is persuading the powers that be to have a look at that system and say, actually, is this how we want to fund sport going forward? Is our Olympic medals the sole measure for UK sport funding, or do we want to have a little bit of a wider view in terms of saying these are sports that are really important to our community throughout the UK and really important for other reasons we talked about as legacy and equalities, participation and those type of issues, and start aligning a funding model a little bit more to a kind of wider agenda. That would be what I would do.
It is apparent that Britain as a whole could do with more money put into its second most popular sport behind football, but for now all fans can do is hope the situation for the Olympic team changes and a sport that is seeing a great rise in youth participation and enjoyment gets more money to expand its possibility of greatness.